Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the first episode of the Checkerboard Chat. That is the Daily Beacon Sports podcast. I guess I'm your host, Josh Lane. I'm the sports editor here at the Beacon this semester. I'm joined by Ethan Stone, our assistant sports editor, and a contributor, Riley Thomas. He's done a nice work on tennis for us. Happy to be joined with you guys. How you all doing this morning?
Doing great. How are you all doing?
I am doing fantastic. Ready to talk some Tennessee sports.
Right, man. It's a great week so far already. I mean, this is just exciting just to be here and talk about something meaningful for first time. It feels like years, I will say.
Yeah. Ole Miss this week, obviously. Got good stuff going on in the past for Tennessee football. Pretty bright future ahead. It can change one way or another this Saturday. But, yeah.
Yeah, the spotlight's on Tennessee right now. I feel like we're at this point where we flip a coin and it's in midair and we're looking at which way it's going to fall. That's Tennessee right now. Yeah. We got the momentum. We're going to maybe upset Ole Miss or come crashing back down. Don't know. But what I do know is that Tennessee handled South Carolina pretty handedly last weekend. 45-20 win over the Gamecocks. Just all-out domination in the first half. Vols scored 5 touchdowns real early. Hendon Hooker found Javonte Payton for a long touchdown pass. They're finally starting to connect now with those long offensive passes. Velus Jones, another long pass, lots of yards after the catch from him. He's been doing that all year so far. So just a dominating first half. South Carolina got a touchdown right before the end of the half, but Tennessee had all the steam. They were kind of cruising towards another 60-point win maybe, or 60-point showing like they did last week. And then kind of, I don't know, took their foot off the gas or whatever. I know we'll get into that a little more later. But second half, not nearly as productive. South Carolina starts coming back. I think they even outscored Tennessee, 13-7 in the second half. Yeah. So, it's kind of all Gamecocks there. But Tennessee survived in the end. They scored a touchdown, under 5 minutes in the fourth quarter to kind of seal the deal. But, again, like I mentioned, that kind of, stall out in the second half, whatever you want to call it. A less aggressive play calling. I know we'll get into that in a little bit, but just kind of what went right for the Vols. What happened there in the second half? Was Josh Heupel to blame for this, for the play calling, or is it just other factors? Ethan, your thoughts on that?
Well, you were talking a little bit about Javonte Payton earlier, I guess, when you were introducing the topic, and he's really the guy that's impressed me the most in the offense, and he's, I think, a big reason Tennessee has been getting out early. Really going deep. I know Heupel hasn't really put too much emphasis on, the deep ball, I guess explosive plays in the offense. It's been more kind of short passes, feed Tyon Evans, stuff like that. But, connects with Payton. I believe it was the second touchdown of the day after hitting Hyatt in the end zone. Tough catch there by Hyatt. But it's nice to see a receiver really coming to form. That Hooker to Payton connection is really starting to hit its stride. As far as second half goes, that I wasn't expecting it. I thought Tennessee was just going to keep going, kind of like they did against Missouri. Obviously a 13-7 outscoring by South Carolina in the second half. But when it comes down to it, teams are going to have their off days. Took their foot off the gas, but it's a first-year head coach with a newer team. You got guys that are, excited for the moment, don't necessarily know that, hey, in the SEC play, you're going to have to keep your foot down. You're going to have to play all 4 quarters to really dominate a team. And ultimately, it was still enough, 25-point win. You can't complain too much if you're a Tennessee fan. But those are just kind of my takeaways.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, like you said, Javonte Payton, he's scored in 4 straight games now. I mean, that's insane. I mean, they are definitely, Hendon Hooker he's solidifying as a top quarterback, which is kind of crazy to say as in this country. I mean, top 5 in passer rating was like 186, something crazy like that. Definitely you can tell the chemistry is building with him and the receivers. The first couple of games, we saw Joe Milton out there overthrowing people, whatnot, have you. But to me, Hooker has just solidified himself, being here from the spring on, now getting reps with the ones. He has just made this offense a different dimension. And so you can tell me people like Cedric Tillman, who've only had, in his first 3 seasons, had 8 receptions. He had 6 Saturday. I mean, that's unheard of. I just don't understand what happened past that to now make Hooker to do what he does.
Do you think that Josh Heupel has had a huge hand in that, or do you think that's mostly Hooker being, just an elite quarterback?
Hooker did, he had decent numbers at Virginia Tech. Nothing of, the magnitude he's having now. I definitely think it's Heupel and the coaching staff. You can tell they're getting the most out of their players compared to what these last coaching staff did. You can tell these coaches just know what they're doing. You can tell out there by the way the receivers are running routes, what the O-line is doing, definitely overperforming compared to what we're used to these last 3 years or so. You can tell the coaching staff is definitely, to me, just taking this offense to a new level that we have just not seen, honestly, probably 5 years plus, personally. I just think that is definitely the main calling card is definitely the coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. We knew when Josh Heupel was hired, his history has always been that offense, up-tempo offense, and kind of working with quarterbacks. And so, obviously, Tennessee's had some well-documented quarterback issues over, since Peyton Manning left, really, you could say, in one regard. But so we knew that Heupel's success was going to be, centered around the quarterback if he could. And obviously, year one, you're not expecting a Heisman winner first season, but just kind of at least taking those steps in the right direction. Because last year was so inconsistent between Garantano and Maurer and Bailey and whatever, and Pruitt just did not seem to figure out what was going on. And so we knew that's where Heupel had to fix it. And we thought it was going to be with Joe Milton. It turns out it's with Hendon Hooker. He's just been incredible, and we'll talk a little bit about him more later. But yeah, definitely I think the coaching staff, it deserves a lot of credit for what they've been able to do with Hooker in this offense, seemingly out of nowhere. We knew Heupel was going to bring that offense, but to get the results and see it happening, halfway through this season, and they're tops of the SEC and some of the top teams in the country in terms of offense. That's been pretty surprising.
I think you can tell compared to last year, Tennessee's already scored more points than all of last year in the first 6 games. They've already outscored their 100. They scored 103 points in the first quarter last year. They had 48, something crazy. So you can just tell that is just what is paying off. You can just tell that Heupel and his coaching staff just know what they're doing, and we're not used to that. Because you're seeing Tylen Evans do what he does, rush for 119, one touchdown on Saturday. Like you said in the second half, it was not the best showing, but we're up 38-7 at the half, or 37 at the half. Everyone's gonna take a little bit off the gas pedal. Injuries were piling up for Tennessee. You can just tell they didn't really try, and the game was just out of reach. No matter what South Carolina did, even pulling out a fake punt for 44 yards and a touchdown, that's all they had going on offense. So you can take a little bit into that, but I don't see too much into it because up 37 at the half, win 45-20. The gas pedal was definitely lifted, and it was just. They had no shot. I'm sorry, but South Carolina had no shot of coming back and winning, so definitely okay.
Yeah, if they're up, if Tennessee's up 20 going into halftime, then maybe, that's a little bit of a problem because we've seen teams come back from down 20 before at all 3 levels of the sport, be it high school, be it professional, whatever. But, with Tennessee building such a dominant lead and just having such a presence in the first half, you can really tell that, you come out and Heupel obviously still wants to win, but he's not gunning deep. He's not going to Javonte Payton first play. He's not doing a shallow route to Velus Jones, with blockers downfield. I believe he ran the ball all 3 times just straight out of the gun out of the first half. And it's when it comes down to it, you want to run clock. You want to you just want to get it over with. South Carolina has a good defense, but they'll be able to stop Tylen Evans when all they're doing is running the ball, and South Carolina knew that that hey, they're going to want to run clock. They're not exactly going to be shooting to beat us by 50 because that's just not who Heupel is. That's not what any competitor really wants to do in the SEC. When it comes down to it, these coaches know each other. These coaches don't want to just clown on each other, stuff like that.
Because that first drive you saw in the second half was 3 straight runs, but on 3rd and 1. You're probably going to give it to Tylen Evans. He just didn't get it. But then after that, though, you saw a sack each drive, which killed every single drive. You get the 3rd and long, 2nd and long, and you have to throw the football. Defense is not going to throw the football. They can sit back, bring pressure, whatever, drop 8, drop 7. It's hard to get that on 3rd and long. So South Carolina definitely played better defensively, But you could tell it was a little bit different game plan. Like you said, conservative more. Injuries were kind of piling up, already down to, Time was banged up. Jabari Small didn't play. So I think that just kind of came out into it. 28 first quarter, 38 first half. So I think that has a little bit to do with it, but I don't think too much into it heading into Ole Miss.
Yeah, then a big reason that Tennessee had that big lead has been its quarterback Hendon Hooker. We all know we kind of already talked about a little bit about his success, but I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into that. Just a couple of stats on Hooker. As far as the SEC rankings, Hooker is top 4 in completion percentage, 69.64%, yards per attempt at 9.49 yards, passing touchdowns with 13, and he has the highest quarterback rating in the SEC at 185.88. That's right. A Tennessee quarterback has the highest quarterback rating in the SEC.
Never thought I would hear those words. I'm telling you what.
Yeah. We're halfway through the season.
Halfway through.
This isn't one game in. Yeah.
We have entered a new plane of existence.
Honestly. It just feels great to say that. We're actually topping something. Who knows how long that's been, especially at quarterback play.
Yeah. And so 13 passing touchdowns. That's already tied his previous career high. Mm-hmm. It's through 6 games, 13 passing touchdowns. I believe at Virginia Tech 2019, he did that in 10 games.
Yeah.
So we're kind of seeing a career year out of Hendon Hooker. Like we said earlier, he lost out the starting job to Joe Milton. Right? Joe Milton was kind of the late transfer in, didn't get the spring practice, but won the job between the summer and fall. Hendon Hooker starts the season on the bench against Bowling Green. Comes in, I believe it was the Pitt game when Milton was injured. He plays a decent game at Florida, but he comes out, and then that next game, Hooker's starting again. I think that was big there. Josh Heupel realized, Hooker's, Milton's had the overthrows, he's had the inconsistencies, whatever. Hooker's been productive, so he went with him starting in that next game after Florida, and he's kind of taken it and run, and he's already got the passing touchdowns. He's been great on the ground with the rushing touchdowns. Ethan, just what have you seen from Hooker so far? Just talk a little bit about him and Tennessee's quarterback.
Yeah, so what comes to mind immediately is just I've kind of said it the whole time. I think Joe Milton has the higher ceiling between the two. I think Hooker thrives in this offense that Heupel's created. Maybe that's why he wasn't as high, in Virginia Tech. Obviously, he was a good quarterback there. Definitely not taking anything away from him. If you just look up Hendon Hooker stats, Virginia Tech, or not stats, highlights on YouTube at Virginia Tech. The dude was an animal. He was all over the place running. Yeah. He really, really does remind me of Josh Dobbs. But kind of getting back to the Joe Milton thing, Milton's got a high ceiling. He can throw the ball 80 yards flat-footed. Sometimes that's a problem, though, and it's like Josh said, it's nice that Heupel was able to recognize that, hey, Tennessee, if they want to win right now, needs a quarterback like Hendon Hooker, the guy that can hit the deep ball every once in a while, but more importantly is accurate, doesn't make mistakes. He's only got 1 interception on the year, and it was I think I don't even think it was in his start. I think it might have been against Pitt.
It was.
It was when I believe Tennessee was kind of desperate at the time, so he was making, rushed throw because he kind of has to. He doesn't have much more of an option, so you can't really even fault him on that. Yeah. So just on his own, just playing at his own pace, he's been pretty much mistake-free. Yeah. And obviously Heupel expects that from his quarterback, and he expects, those players, we're moving fast already, we don't want the defense to have to play more than they already have to.
Yeah. And I think just another point about the coaching staff, the difference is you saw last year with Pruitt and his staff, they couldn't get over JG. They stayed with him through all of his mistakes, whatever the heck he did. They did not care. Pruitt's like, this is my guy. I don't care. I'm gonna play him every game, and obviously it showed 3-7 last year. Milton starts first 2 games, gets hurt, then Hooker gets in, plays well. Heupel realizes the mistake he made and owns it, and then now he's playing the right guy. I'm sure how bad do fans, everybody want that Pittsburgh game back. Come on. You're going to tell me this offense right now, the way we're playing, they're going to beat that Pittsburgh team? That's going to happen. So that game, I know that's sitting, deep in their soul, just like, man, how bad do we want to play them again? But just kind of going off of that a little bit, and also about Milton, too, I think one of the reasons why they kind of did play him, he's got more of his eligibility left. This is Hooker's last year. So, yes, Hooker might have been the right guy to begin with, but I think Milton had a longevity. And like you said, the pure talent is there for Milton. It's just a little coaching up. And I think they wanted to either, I guess that could have been a reason, but I think Milton's got 3 more years left if I'm not mistaken. But Hooker, this is last year, so they may have wanted longevity, get Milton ready this year, but obviously a mistake was made. But I trust Heupel. What he's done with Drew Lock, Mackenzie Milton, Landry Jones at Oklahoma. I trust this guy, and you can just show it's happening again with Hendon Hooker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I was trying to find Hooker's eligibility here.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think he might have 1 year left because I think he redshirted. So
okay.
I think the COVID
thing get another year.
I think COVID might give him another year.
They gave everybody an extra year.
Super senior.
We've got 6th or 7th year seniors.
Yeah,
and
unbelievable.
Yeah, so Hooker redshirt senior, Milton redshirt junior. So.
I think with COVID, I think he might.
Have one more year?
I don't quote me on that.
Okay.
Riley might be correct. But
yeah.
I wanted to think that he had 1 more year. I don't know. That's just what I've been thinking this entire semester so far, just while watching him play. Because something that I've always seen is hey, if this guy, if he has even another year to develop under Heupel, I can't even imagine.
I can't either.
If he comes back, he's a Heisman candidate.
There's no question
at the beginning
about
of the year, I really do.
I truly agree with you. No question.
Yeah, but to your point, regardless, Joe Milton still at least has 1 more year.
1 more year, yeah.
After Hooker, just by the fact of him being a junior. So, again, credit to Heupel for going, switch. I guess they're both his guys because they both transferred to Heupel after he was hired. But the one that this is recent come out, and he's got all the talent, and he earns a starting job to go back on that. I think that says a lot about Heupel as a coach and what he wants to do with this offense.
Yeah.
And kind of speaking of that, what's impressed you the most, or you could say surprised or whatever. Just talk about Tennessee's offense. We're halfway through the season. They've already scored more points. You mentioned earlier 249 points. That's second in the SEC, 6th in the nation. They lead the SEC in rushing touchdowns, total offense in SEC games, first downs, 30-yard plays in SEC games, that might be the surprising one to me. They have the best turnover margin in the SEC games at +5. So, what's surprised you the most? What's impressed you the most about Tennessee's offense, Ethan?
Just, I guess how varied it is kind of the thing that might be a little shocking of an answer. When I heard about Heupel, obviously, coming in after Pruitt, and he's the guy that's hired. The first thing I think is, he's just going to throw the ball deep 75% of the time because I was naive about it. I just didn't know much about Heupel, but I knew his knack for progressing these really good quarterbacks, like Riley said earlier, like Mackenzie Milton, like Landry Jones. He's got a knack for that sort of stuff. So I thought it was going to be a lot of passing, and I guess like Heupel said, the misnomer about the offense is they run the ball a lot and they punish you with it. Ty and Evans especially, and. You got Jabari Small behind him is having a good year. He's kind of had some injury problems, but, there's been no problems in the rush game. And so that's kind of what surprised me the most is just how effective that has been on the ground. Evans is a beast, for lack of a better word. He is. He's just punishing people. Yeah. It doesn't matter really who he's going up against. I'm not sure how many yards he had against Florida, but he was punishing even them,
Yeah.
The scoreboard doesn't exactly show it. I believe it was 38-14, but this offense has places to go, and I don't think we've even seen what they're capable of yet.
I think what's just kind of speak volumes to me this year, through all the injuries, even on offense, whatever it might be, they're still performing at a high level. The offensive line has had turnover every game. Cooper Mays, Kingston Harris, everybody being out. Jerome Carvin, playing center when he's a guard. Cooper Mays playing tackle when he's really a guard. That's what he played at Georgia. So through all the turmoil, they're still performing at a high level. The offense is getting over 200 yards on offense, on rushing the football. Up front is dominant. Now, the sacks are a different story. Gave up 6 against South Carolina. That could still need some improvement, but obviously you can tell this offense is built by the running game. The running game builds the play action, read option, whatever it might be. You can tell that is what they live and die from. And that to me I love to see that. I love just ground and pound. Seeing Tom Evans, was he 5'8", 5'9", but he's built like a bowling ball. He just runs over people, runs through that line. I wouldn't want to tackle that man. I'm sorry. He's a smaller Derrick Henry, if you want to be honest with me. But And honestly, Jabari Small, Laneith Whitehead, he's going 3-4 deep at most positions, and they're still performing at a high level. To me, that just speaks volumes to the coaching staff. These players are buying in. We're seeing offensive numbers we haven't seen in 5+ years. I'll go back and think, imagine Heupel with the 2016 offense. How disgusting would that be? I'm sorry. Got NFL talent across the board on that team. He's doing this with guys who may not play past Tennessee. And once he gets, I'm not saying these guys aren't real talent, but imagine, he gets all these recruits in. These guys are going to, if I was a recruit, I want to come here and play for this guy. Come on. To me, I love it. It makes me happy.
Yeah, and obviously, we got a big recruiting weekend coming up this week. Walter Nolan, number 1 prospect in the nation, is going to be in attendance. I believe I saw a 2024 quarterback, number 1 in the class. His name is escaping me right now, but he's going to be in attendance. You got Jordan Potts from Powell, pretty dynamic quarterback down there. Got some stuff to work on, but he's definitely got what it takes, to play at the next level. So you got all these guys from around Knoxville, from around the nation, just seeing what Heupel's been doing, seeing what Tennessee has been doing, just returning to be fun again.
Yes.
And even if Tennessee goes out here and lays an egg against Ole Miss, and you can argue that one way or another, we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah. But even if they do that, Tennessee football is fun now. Yeah, last year, you can say what you will about Pruitt, you can say, all that stuff, but they're not putting up very many points against lower level SEC teams. But now Tennessee is. They're beating South Carolina 45-20. They're beating Missouri by 62-24. They're putting up big numbers. And when it comes down to it, that's what the people want to see.
Last year, there were the games, we don't put up 28. We put 28 in the first quarter the last 2 weeks. That's unheard of. Especially for us, that we've been through the most.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I saw a stat, and I don't have it pulled up, so it's just off the top of my head. So we'll check the accuracy, but I think it was the first time in 100 years or something like that Tennessee had 28 points or in back-to-back games I can't remember the exact date.
I want to think it's the first time ever.
Yeah, maybe
sorry
even
to cut you off. Yeah, maybe I think it was the first time ever.
It sounds about right.
So we're doing unheard of things.
Yeah.
In the as far as Tennessee offense is concerned. Again, I think that goes back to Josh Heupel all in the end of just what he's been able to do. But we've mentioned Ole Miss. Obviously, I think it's an understatement to say it's a big game coming up this weekend. Ole Miss is hot off a crazy win over Arkansas. I think early candidate for Game of the Year, maybe.
Easy.
52-51 win. Both teams are scoring back and forth, even late in the fourth quarter, probably under 5 minutes. I don't have the exact numbers, but I think they both scored at that point. It comes down to Arkansas, 2-point conversion play in the end zone, and they don't get it. Ole Miss walks out with the win.
Yeah, it was so intense that game was that I have a theory that Josh Heupel was watching it before he came out in the post-game press conference, because I know the media was. Yeah. We're waiting for Heupel, we got our questions ready, and you see off to our left, people are watching the TV, and of course everyone's got to go watch it.
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of anticlimactic because, we don't really care who wins at that point. Yeah. But Arkansas tries the 2-point conversion. I believe it was a fade, which is one of the worst plays in the history of football.
Debatable, but okay.
But not that specific one. But, the fade. I'm not a fan of the goal line fade. But I could be wrong. That might not have been what it was. I can't really remember. But, excellent game. Enough to get Heupel to watch it, after a big win. Enough to get Tennessee media to be watching it, and obviously people at home are watching it, but 52-51, that is a score. I believe the over for this game for Tennessee and Ole Miss is 82, something like that, which is one of the highest since Texas Tech and someone in 2016. But beyond that, ever. It's the second highest ever.
Because when you took over under, I think Alabama Ole Miss this year was maybe 79.5, something insane like that. But the difference between Arkansas in 2 weeks, you get blown out by Georgia 37-0, and then you come out and score 51, have 670 yards of total offense. Now, obviously, defense is a different story, whatever it might be. But, obviously, Arkansas's offense is, it's fine. It's average. It's a fine offense. But they do that against Ole Miss. I'm sorry, but, that should speak well for Tennessee coming into Saturday, if you ask me.
Yeah, I know we'll hit on these defenses a little later, and obviously coming into the week, we know it's going to be an offensive shootout. So on the flip side of that, we know which defense holds up better in the end. We'll talk about a little bit that more later. I also with this weekend, we mentioned the hype around it, the build up. Checker Neyland is back. Right, there was a movement going forward. Danny White, I guess, caved in. I don't know all the specifics.
I want to say he caved in. Everybody was pressuring him on Twitter. He caved in.
I like to use the word peer pressure.
I do too. I think that's very fitting for this movement for this weekend.
I think that's a good word. But when it comes down to it, Danny White, he seems to be really for the people, and that's kind of a generic comment. But he really does seem to have Tennessee fans' best interest in heart, and they want it. So when it comes down to it, he delivered, and I don't think he wanted to wait, and you can tell that, when it came down to it, he wanted to do what the fans want to do. And Heupel seems that way as well. Yeah.
They're all people's people, honestly, and that's just what I get from that. They want to please us a lot, which is fair. Been through a lot, which is fine. But, Checker Neyland's whatever. The last time I did it, sour taste in the mouth, 41-0 against Georgia. Also, last game was Pokey Grays. So, like you said, we're 1-3 in Checker Neyland games. So, obviously, it looks great, but the outcome, not the best.
Remind me, do you guys know if there's been one at night before? Because
Oklahoma in 2015.
Oklahoma 2015. I was actually at that game. I'm not sure why I don't remember that.
It was 2014 Florida at noon, and then Oklahoma in 15, Florida in 16, Georgia in 17. So
yeah, I remember the Florida one. I'm not sure. That's the one, obviously, Tennessee came out on top in.
Yeah.
2015, Oklahoma just about came on top, if I remember correctly. But
lost in overtime, up 17-0 at first half, but the difference for a different day.
But, that was back when Tennessee, and obviously they're getting to that point again, but that was when Tennessee could really compete with the Oklahomas, with the Georgias.
Right.
And the reason they haven't done Checker Neyland, kind of like you said earlier, Riley, is because just a sour taste in the mouth from the last time. 2017, 4 years ago. Yeah. It's the last time it happened, 41-0 loss to Georgia. Whenever that happens, people are going to put their gimmicks away and say, hey, we just want to win football games.
Exactly. And last sellout, too. So, that 4 years ago, that blows my mind. How big football is here. 4 years ago was the last sellout. I just can't believe it.
Yeah, I think it speaks volumes to the Pruitt era, and obviously coming from Alabama, I think there's a lot of hype and after some of those teams, but he just did not deliver, and you can blame it on whatever you want. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have to win football games to be successful. And fans don't show up. They don't follow the team when you're not winning. So you're not going to get your sellouts. You're not going to get your big promotions. It's just it is what it is. And I don't know. At the end of the day, if you don't win, no one cares. And I think finally. Heupel, we're 6 games in, so you still early, still halfway through. But Heupel's won so far. We've had a couple close losses, but as a whole, Heupel's really turned the program around, and people are starting to care about it. They maybe haven't done it for the first time in 4 years.
Yeah.
And so again, big weekend coming up. Ethan.
Yeah, I'd say it all starts with Ole Miss. Tennessee beat South Carolina. They beat Mizzou. Those are the teams that they beat last year. So, still have a loss to Pitt. So when it comes down to it, it's looking up right now. But Tennessee still hasn't proven anything. Not really. They've won games by a lot. And, the hype is obviously there, and I understand that because it's kind of warranted. You beat, I believe it was South Carolina last year by less than
It was close.
I think it was
6
point.
It was very close.
31-27, I believe
very
it was.
Close.
So you come and beat them by 25 this year. Obviously, that's an improvement, but you got to do it against the high level teams, against the Ole Miss, and this is the perfect opportunity. Ole Miss number 13 in the nation, but it's a winnable game. It's more so than Alabama and Georgia because we're at home. You've got the hype coming off of 2 big SEC wins. You got Lane Kiffin coming to town.
Yeah.
You've got, all these different mini storylines that are moving around that is just getting people hyped and just getting people, hey, I want to go to this game. I want to be loud. And that's how you mess up an offense like Ole Miss. You be loud. You mess with their communication. You mess with Matt Corral's communication, their Heisman contender for quarterback, and just mess up their offense in any way, make mistakes because their defense is not going to hold up. And Tennessee's defense has shown that they kind of can.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes, obviously they're, like I said earlier, playing the South Carolinas, playing the Mizzous. They have to go out and prove it if they want to take that next step. If Heupel wants to really be the guy for Tennessee.
I mean, like you said, South Carolina, Mizzou, like, let's just be honest, they're the bottom barrel of the SEC with Vanderbilt. They just are, and it is. But, you know, you got some positives. Heupel beat a second-year coach in Eli Drinkowitz. You know, I mean, they had a decent amount of respect coming in. Return quarterback Hunter Bazelak, great running attack. I forget his name, but he's been there for probably 20 years, it seems like. You know, it'd be his counterpart first year, Shane Beamer. So, I mean, like, there's building blocks. And, yes, those defenses aren't as good as, you know, other defenses might be. But just to show that you're not a part of that group, I think that's meaningful. Because coming to the season, it was low expectations. It was. You know, most of these games were toss-ups coming into it. You had bona fide wins over Vanderbilt, South Alabama, Tennessee Tech. That might have been it.
Maybe Bowling Green.
Bowling Green. Sorry, I forgot about Bowling Green. And everybody else was a toss-up minus Florida, Alabama, and Georgia. Those were bona fide losses. Everything else was a toss-up. And so now coming into this weekend with this one, this was also a toss-up for me, and now the fact that we're only an underdog by 2.5 points, that to me is just building blocks for the future.
And I think the way Tennessee has done it is why the hype is there. Not necessarily because Tennessee's beaten Mizzou. Mm-hmm. At the beginning of the year, that wasn't exactly expected. I'd say Mizzou was a 50-50. South Carolina was probably a Tennessee win for most people. Mizzou wasn't necessarily, you know, they're not as great as they were projected to be preseason, but Mizzou is not a game that Tennessee was outright expected to win. Yeah. That is not a game that Tennessee fans went into the season saying, we should beat this team.
Exactly.
And to go out there and just, you know, dominate both of them.
Yeah.
That really speaks to where the program is at. I'd say that they are ahead of the curve right now.
I agree.
So, Ole Miss coming to town, we've kind of hinted on their offense, just how proficient they are, how much they can score. We'll touch on that a little bit more later. But maybe the biggest storyline with this, at least in the media, I think as far as you ask any team, any players, they don't care. They don't care about any of this. But, you know, talking to the media, talking to Tennessee fans in general, it's Lane Kiffin's return to Knoxville.
Train.
Yeah, obviously he had that 2009 season. They lose in the bowl game, calls a late press conference and bounces. There, you know, he had other factors kind of pushing him out the door. We won't necessarily get into, but just what do you remember about Lane, about, you know, him leaving in the middle of the night, whatever you want to call it? Where does he factor into this? Riley, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, because going back to 2009, I was 11. Goodness gracious. I mean, time is fun. I'm an old man. Good gosh. But, so I was 11. I mean, I was obviously very invested in 2009 at the games. I went to a lot of them. I actually went to the Music City Bowl. That was a tough one to witness. But, I mean, you know, I wasn't probably even awake when he left in the middle of the night. I was asleep, woke up to the next morning, and I was like, really? Because I like this guy. He brought a different energy, because, you know, we've been used to, you know, Philip Fulmer had been there for, you know, since 93 or whatever it might have been. So, you know, time for a new face, even though we did kind of push him out, whatever. But I thought Lane Kiffin was a great guy. I did. You know, as a kid, you know, I might have hated him then, but I don't really hate him now. You know, I get his point of going to USC, dream job. I get that. You know, that's whatever. Maybe probably should have a different way. Definitely immature Lane Kiffin at that point in his life. He's matured, obviously, with Nick Saban, FAU, now at Ole Miss. But we were talking earlier, I don't think this game has the hype. It might a little bit, because Ole Miss is a good team, if Kiffin is not the coach. If it's somebody different, it has a decent amount, but since he is the head coach, it's just an added plus for us. You know, honestly, I mean, I want to kind of curb stop him just because I want to. But, like, I expect some boos, but I expect some faint cheers because Kiffin is Kiffin. But, you know, people wanted him to come here again when we fired Pruitt. I didn't think that was realistic. We're not going to deal with that. We're not going to deal with that again. But definitely an added plus to the game on Saturday, if you ask me.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin, if you had to write a TV series about University of Tennessee football, you know, Lane Kiffin he's a major character that has gone through some serious character development as time has gone along.
And he named his kid Knox. Yeah. I mean, like, come on. This kid, he loves Knoxville.
You've got people, so obviously, you know, my 2 cents from that night, I'm 9-10 years old. I don't know exactly off the top of my head. January 12th, 2010, calls a press conference like 11 at night. It wasn't even a press conference. You can watch it on YouTube. Mm-hmm. he drags these reporters into a room in the middle of the night and says, "Hey guys, I'm going to my dream job and I'm out," basically. And he also, I believe, says that I would not have done this for any other school. It's only USC, which in my opinion is even more of a slap to the face.
Yeah.
And so you can see why, the campus rioted, and you've got, these players cursing his name and all that stuff. And fast forward 10 years later, or 9 years later, when Pruitt gets booted, there are people wanting him back.
Yeah.
But at the time, the Tennessee fans were, calling for his head and saying, we want, GTH, Lane Kiffin, stuff like that. And it's like, they hated this guy. Mm-hmm. And now he's just kind of a popular figure in Tennessee history.
Yeah.
He's the guy that, the one that got away, I guess, that he could have been really good for Tennessee. Yeah. And all these narratives are just circling around about this guy that, I don't know, he's like a man of mystery. It's so weird. Yeah. He goes off to USC. He doesn't do too hot. He goes to FAU. I think he gets them ranked for the first time ever.
He did great at FAU.
Yeah, and then, leaves for, I think he went to Alabama first, but then leaves for Ole Miss. Mm-hmm. And, here he is now, number 13 team in the nation, and, he's just a fun character to follow. He's got all sorts of stuff going on, love him or hate him, he's an interesting fellow for sure, and I think it's going to be a warm welcome in Neyland. I don't think there's going to be too many boos, me personally. I think people are going to have that, I guess, competitive edge because it's Ole Miss and used to be Tennessee's coach, but I don't think it's going to be too much of a hate thing. I think it's more going to be we want to beat you badly right now because of everything that has just gone on in our future.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's the level of the Brady reunion, but you saw the Patriot fans boo him when he got out there because, like you said, the competitive thing. That'll probably happen for us, but deep down we're like, man, I like this guy. It's good to see him back.
He's just such a constant figure in Tennessee. And not even just Tennessee history, and just sports history. For the past 20 years, the guy has just been everywhere. Mm-hmm. It seems like he can't really go away.
Can't go away.
It's just Lane Kiffin's always that dude in the back of your mind, oh yeah, Lane Kiffin. He's at Florida Atlantic. Oh yeah, Lane Kiffin.
There he is.
He's throwing clipboards in the air when and he's just fun.
He's a fun guy.
You got I think it was last year, I'm not sure if Corral was there last year, but you got their quarterback throws a bomb and the guy's wide open. They win. It's to win the game or something, deep in the fourth quarter. I don't know if it was to win, but it put him ahead. Yeah. And Kiffin just throws this clipboard 700 yards in the air. And it's just that's fun. Yeah. This dude's fun. He's not just a stoic professional dude. He's fun. He's a football coach. And, it's going to be interesting to have him back. Mm-hmm. That much I can guarantee.
Yeah, I think this is his second return maybe to Knoxville.
Yes.
He came as an OC in Alabama, but that's not the same thing.
Yeah.
He's a head coach now.
Yeah, now that the focus is on him, this is his team.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a matchup to watch. And speaking of his team, they've been successful. It obviously starts with the offense. We mentioned Matt Corral, kind of one of the leading Heisman candidates, just maybe a little bit behind Bryce Young on most sites you go to. But he's got nearly 1,500 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, no interceptions. He can run the ball. I think he leads the SEC in rushing touchdowns as a quarterback. So obviously, offense, it runs through Matt Corral. Mm-hmm. Just what are your thoughts on them, on Ole Miss's offense? Riley, we'll start with you.
Yeah. So, last year, Matt Corral, the jump from this year to last year he had 14 interceptions. This year, he's got 0. He threw 6 against Arkansas last year. And now Arkansas, last week, he doesn't throw anything, and he throws for over 300 yards. It's insane what Kiffin has done to him, raised him to that next level. But just overall on their offense, they live and die by running the football like we do. They've got 4 guys that have run for over 200 yards, Matt Corral included. He leads their team with 8 touchdowns, on the ground at least. The big matchup going into this weekend, they are ranked 5th in rushing with 259. Tennessee's ranked 30th on defense, giving 112. To me, that's the big matchup of this weekend. Can the Tennessee running game stack up to their running attack? Because you saw, and also running quarterback, because you saw last time Tennessee played running quarterback, Emory Jones, he ran for 144 yards. Matt Corral can run. So how does that match up go into this weekend? They've got some decent receivers. Their best receiver is Ontario Drummond, 460 for 5 touchdowns. So they've got weapons. Kiffin knows how to use weapons like Heupel does. Like I said, the main matchup to me is their running attack versus our rushing defense.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Florida. I think that was one of the big storylines going into that game because you play Pitt, you play Bowling Green, or whoever it was before that, and they were one of the best rushing defense, and they still might be top of near the top, but they were one of the best rushing defenses in the country. And they kind of got exposed a little bit against Florida, so that's a good point you bring up to watch. Is that can Tennessee stop the run? Ethan, just kind of your thoughts on Ole Miss, their offense, Matt Corral, whatever.
Yeah, Corral is obviously the one that spearheads that offense. Without him, I'm not sure Ole Miss works. I'm not sure Ole Miss runs. Like Riley said, dude has 20 touchdowns in there. He's averaging 4 touchdowns a game. And has not turned the ball over. And that is just, efficient isn't the word. That is next level efficiency, I guess, for lack of a better term, because truly it goes beyond that. And, they've got the weapons, like Riley said earlier, good running team, great passing team. They're putting up 46 points a game, I think. I think the average score is 46-31 for Ole Miss. Yeah. And, they put up points. Now, their defense, that's kind of a different story.
Very much so.
Now, Tennessee is very, very, very similar to Ole Miss in that regard. Not necessarily the defense. I'd say Tennessee actually has a better defense. But, 1 and 2 in offense. And I believe the SEC, maybe Alabama's up there as well.
Yeah.
But just in terms of explosive offense, putting points on the board, Tennessee and Ole Miss are 2 of the top teams in, I'd say, the country, even if Tennessee isn't ranked. Now, if you go down to those 4 phases plus special teams, you got to say Tennessee, Ole Miss offense, that's kind of a shootout. And then defense, Tennessee should be able to kind of pull ahead in that regard. Yeah. Now, is there any slowing down Matt Corral? That's to be seen. Yeah. And it's hard to preview stuff like that because of just how efficient Lane Kiffin has been on offense with Ole Miss, but that's going to be the key. You got to slow down Matt Corral somehow. That Emory Jones ran all over Tennessee. You just cannot allow that for Corral.
When you look at Tennessee's defensive numbers that pop out, 52 tackles for loss, that's first in the SEC. That's first in the Power 5 and second in FBS. So they're playing aggressive. They've got 7 interceptions in their last 4 games. So maybe they've been forcing the turnovers, and that was kind of the story. At the beginning of the year, they couldn't get any turnovers. Yeah. They were making plays, but just nothing was falling. Now everything's falling. They're getting turnovers. Jalen McCall has been a big part of that. I think he's got 3 interceptions of the year. So that aggressiveness that they've been playing with, that ability to get turnovers, to capitalize on the mistakes of the other quarterbacks. Obviously, Matt Corral hasn't thrown one yet. He hasn't had a turnover, so if they can, take advantage, maybe he won't even make a mistake, and Tennessee won't even be in that spot. But any advantage you can get, anytime you can stop an Ole Miss drive before they go punch it in the end zone, I think that's a win. I think that has to be where Tennessee's focus is on, and a big part of that might be the injuries on their defense. Obviously, Jawan Mitchell, he's out for the year. That was earlier this week at linebacker. That's a huge loss for them. But, they've had Aaron Beasley, they had Jeremy Banks step up at linebacker. And I think handle the position well enough to where, obviously, the loss of Mitchell hurts, but maybe they feel all right about where they are. Yeah. Maybe a little more pressing for this game is in the secondary. Theo Jackson, Christian Charles, 2 guys that didn't play last week. I think they were dressed up. So maybe they're kind of on the minor injury side. Again, we don't hear a bunch about their injuries, but if those 2 guys, especially Theo Jackson, who's just been so good for the Vols all year, if those 2 guys are back and back in the secondary and can get at Matt Corral, I think that looks better for Tennessee's defense.
Yeah, it's going to come down to limiting those phantom injuries that nobody hears about until game day. Theo Jackson, Danico Slaughter, Christian Charles, as Josh said, nobody knew that they were going to be out going into this game. We all thought that they were just perfectly healthy. And then Theo Jackson, Danico Slaughter actually come onto the field in pads. And so, Tennessee media is like, oh, they're playing because, they're running around on the field. I mean, I purchase some binoculars, which are very nice if you're covering Tennessee football, because the press box is pretty high up there. But you look down there and you see these guys, they're running. They're not just like jogging on the sidelines and mailed in and looking like guys that aren't going to play. And so that kind of stuff, I guess, is something that not necessarily needs to be limited because they can't help it, but that's going to be big for Saturday.
Yeah.
If we go into the Ole Miss game and you're missing Jeremy Banks, Theo Jackson, and Alontae Taylor just out of nowhere, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That is a major problem, especially against a team that can punish you in the deep game, punish you on offense.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be pretty key. Is they've got to kind of calm down on those injuries a little bit.
I think another thing on the defense, like I said, on the offense, you're seeing guys just step up in these roles for injuries. Like, for example, Aaron Beasley had 9 tackles on Saturday. He had 7 all of last season. And you've got a guy, Brandon Turnage, who hadn't played all season, gets SEC Defensive Player of the Week with 14 tackles. Mm-hmm. These coaches are just getting the most out of their players. That, to me, has been the most surprise all season. Just seeing the defense up front, the back half, just performing at a high level that was not as expected. Like, we knew the offense was going to be good this season, but we didn't expect the defense to be at a level performing where they were stopping other offenses and helping out the team and not just relying on the offense to put up 60 every game. The defense is actually putting in the work and doing the effort. Like Jeremy Banks last year, he looked like a lost puppy out there sometimes. This year he's getting interceptions, tackles, sacks, doing it all. These coaches have just helped out each player.
Yeah, Banks has really, really impressed this season.
Exactly.
He's mostly, and I say mostly because the season is not over yet, has mostly kind of chilled out on those personal foul injuries.
Yeah.
Because, that was pretty prevalent last year. We've got a pretty decent joke running in the press box about that every time Jeremy Banks has one of those. But he's really impressed this season. Yeah. He's really been a force, and that's why, with Jawan Mitchell being out, obviously that is a concern for depth. But the way Aaron Beasley has been playing, the way Banks has been playing, it's not as much of a blow as you would have thought going into preseason with Jawan Mitchell coming from Texas, being the main dude for the Longhorns.
Yeah.
And
Page too, throw him in there as well. So
yeah, exactly.
Page,
He's had a great season.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously much more than what he did last season.
Yeah.
And there's Tennessee has some dogs at linebacker. They've got some players on defense, and that's not exactly an area that people thought would be a strong suit.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that was a position group that I remember you talking at the beginning of the year. They didn't necessarily know how everything would shake up, but they had plenty of bodies there that they're more than capable of handling that position. So I guess as we wrap up, kind of just looking ahead at the second half of Tennessee's schedule and just, what that means for them, what they've got as far as bowl eligibility. They're at 4 wins now. You need 6. They should be a lock. They've got games against South Alabama and Vanderbilt to end the year. You think those two are pretty much guaranteed to be a win, so you're at least at 6. But again, we've got this matchup this week with Ole Miss. Kind of a toss-up, not really sure how that'll shake out yet. Again, there's Kentucky coming up in a couple of weeks. Obviously, Kentucky's good. They're ranked right now. They beat Florida a few weeks back, but still maybe not sure how to view them yet either. So, Ethan, we'll start with you. I guess just what are your thoughts on Tennessee's kind of bowl status? Do they finish with 7 or potentially even 8 wins in the Heupel's first year? Or just what are your thoughts on that as we close out the podcast?
My first thought is I never thought Tennessee would be in this position to where we're talking about maybe 8 wins, because if you had told me that preseason, I would have written it off. I would have said you don't know anything about football because Tennessee has had their fair share of troubles. And you can say that was Pruitt, you can say what you want, but Heupel has obviously turned it around. He's put Tennessee in a position to where 6 games is obviously a lot. I think so, unless Vanderbilt just comes out with a vengeance, wanting to beat an in-state rival, which you never know. But Vandy hasn't played too great this season. Obviously, South Alabama is South Alabama, and
Vandy did not beat in-state rival ECU.
They already lost an in-state rival.
That is true. Maybe they'll even take that and say we've lost to East Tennessee State. Let's beat the other East Tennessee.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
They did lose to the other in-state team. Yeah.
Josh had a look of terror on his face, and I thought I did something wrong. No. East Tennessee State beating Vandy.
Yeah.
If they can do it, I'd say UT Knoxville could do it. But moving forward, Kentucky, I don't know how to rank Kentucky.
Yeah.
I mean, they beat Florida. I'm not sure about Florida either. I think Florida's a little overrated. I don't know. That might get me some slack. But Kentucky, obviously they beat Florida, and Tennessee did not. They also just about lost to UTC 28-23. And, we're following that game in the press box also. I thought they were going to lose. I thought Kentucky was going to lose to...
Pick six save, though.
Yeah, exactly. So, you can go one way with Kentucky. It's still, when Tennessee plays Kentucky, obviously a couple years ago, Kentucky's ranked. Tennessee goes and beats them in one of their best seasons ever. Yeah. And, they're having one of their better seasons ever this season. Yeah. So Kentucky's definitely on the up and up. They've got a team that's really, really starting to play well. Yeah. But as far as Ole Miss and Kentucky go, Tennessee could very well beat both of them. I'm going to be bold and say they split them. I'm going to say between Ole Miss and Kentucky, I genuinely think Tennessee can go be scrappy and take one of them down.
I agree. I think obviously eight would be unreal, but I think realistically 7's probably more of a possibility. More realistically, winning this weekend and then losing to Kentucky, home and away, different scenario. So, but I think that's the more realistic. 6 and 6, like you said, is a lock. I'm sorry, lock of the century, but. A 1-1 is definitely more realistic for Tennessee perspective. But just honestly, just saying that, no one thought we'd be here. I thought we could get 5, maybe 6. So in fact, we're talking about getting 8, by far, like you said. If you had told me that at the beginning of the season, I thought you were high. So I mean, but seriously, definitely a great scenario though.
Yeah. And, it's funny that the three of us have just glossed over the fact that we got number 1, number 2. Well, not number 1 anymore. Alabama lost to Texas A&M, but you got Alabama and Georgia on the schedule. Those, Tennessee's on the up and up. I'm not sure they're quite ready for that level of competition. Georgia might have one of the most dominant defenses I've ever seen, going back to 2001 Miami. Yeah. Speaking of the Hurricanes, I'm not sure where Miami's sitting right now in the season. I think that would be an interesting bowl matchup if they do finish 6-6. If they don't do like I said and finish 1-1 against Ole Miss and Kentucky.
De'Aaron King's out for the season though, so they're about to be. We'll see. But a game can determine a bowl game. You either go to Music City Bowl or you go to Florida. Mm-hmm. So I mean, let's hope we go to Florida. But that would be.
I think I saw some people saying maybe Wisconsin because they're going to lose a pretty decent amount in the Big Ten. They got Ohio State, Michigan State. I'm not sure who all they've played yet, but you got Wisconsin. I've seen some people say Louisville would be an interesting matchup. Obviously, Louisville's just a little bit away. Yeah. It just kind of depends, really. I mean, you could get as far to say Utah, BYU if they lose some more because BYU's got some tough teams on the schedule. They lost to, man, who did they just lose to? Arizona State. No, it wasn't Arizona State. They lost to.
Oh, they beat them. No, that was Boise State.
Boise State, they just lost to Boise State, and they've got that wasn't even the toughest game on there. I mean, this isn't a BYU podcast by any means, but they got USC coming up, they got Baylor coming up, they got UCLA coming up. Yeah. So that would be an interesting one to look out for. Obviously, Tennessee has BYU scheduled in the future. Yeah. I don't know, just off the top of my head, you got. I don't know, Texas Tech would be an interesting one. But, obviously we're just speculating.
It just comes down to matchups and bowl games depending on who's who. Mm-hmm. So we'll see.
Yeah, all things to watch as Tennessee, begins its second half of the season this Saturday against Ole Miss. As we've mentioned, definitely in a much better place than anybody could have anticipated. Mm-hmm. Even if you say you have 4 wins, okay, but just where they are as a team and their mindset and their just total offensive philosophy. So that game kicks off 7:30 Eastern. It's on primetime SEC Network. So all eyes are going to be on Tennessee. Mm-hmm. We'll have full coverage of that at the UTDailyBeacon.com. UTDailyBeacon.com. Full coverage. So I guess that's it. I guess we'll just wrap it up. Riley, Ethan, thanks a lot for being on. I think this was a good time to kick off our first podcast of the year, except maybe right underneath the beginning of the season. We do it all year. Mm-hmm. Maybe that would have been a little bit better.
Yeah, we're a little bit behind the curve.
That's all right. Hey, we start now. We'll just end on a better note.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to finish strong. Yep. A little rusty today, but it's just going to keep going up.
Finish strong. All
right. Yep.
Just like the Vols. All right.
There you go. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
See ya.